So guys, just getting into this, obviously we can talk about the Ryan Johnson stuff until we're blue in the face, but another thing I wanted to talk about, so I'm gonna stay away from the comments just for a little bit. Swig of flavored water for the working man. Is the Producers Guild of America. So if anyone doesn't know anything about the Oscars, I used to be a huge fan of the Oscars. I would follow them every single year. I would get up every single morning, and usually it was around 6 or 7 in the morning Central Standard Time when they would announce the nominees. I would get up every single year in order to watch those nominations be given out live. And so I've been following it for a very long time. And one of the things that you know when you follow these award shows is that the Guild Awards, meaning the Screen Actors Guild, all the actors, the Producers Guild, all the producers that make the film, the Directors Guild, the DGA, you know, all of these guilds that have all these different specialties, they have a lot of power and say in what films end up going on not only to be nominated, but also to win Best Picture, Best Director, things like that, because these various branches obviously represent a very specific set of people, directors, actors, etc., but also a certain percentage of the same people that vote within the Academy as well. And so earlier today, the Producers Guild Awards came out with their nominees for their films. And the reason why the Producers Guild is so important is because they have about an 80% plus track record of accurately predicting what wins at the Oscars. So most of the time, 8 out of 9 times, or 9 out of 10, or 8 out of 10, a very high percentage of the time, whatever wins the PGA award for film will go on to win Best Picture. And it's been the best indicator of what, and the question is always asked, well, how is it the case? The reason why is because they have the very similar type of voting system, and also the people that make up the PGA are very similar and have a similar makeup to the typical Oscar voter. Now, it's not perfect, but oftentimes that is the case. And so the PGA Awards, they came out today with their nominations, and I wanted to talk about this list because it's very interesting, because most of the films on this list, in fact, I would say that there is not one film on this list that will not get nominated for Best Picture. The question is how many of these films will get nominated, because another thing the PGA does very well is be able to predict which films will also get nominated as well. It shows us a little bit about what movies are getting a lot of buzz early on. And so the movies, and we'll talk about each one after I go through the entire list, the movies that got nominated for the PGA Award, so these are for the films for the PGA, and again, this is the best indicator of not only nominations, but also to what's eventually possibly going to win at the Oscars as well. If you don't have a PGA nomination, it is essentially impossible for you to win an Oscar for Best Picture. So let me just put it out there. These are the nominations in alphabetical order: Black Panther, Black Klansman, Bohemian Rhapsody, Crazy Rich Asians, The Favorite, Green Book, A Quiet Place, Roma, A Star is Born, and Vice. Now, there are a couple of things on here that I'm excited to see. So let me just start off there. What are some things that I like seeing? I like seeing A Quiet Place on here. A Quiet Place was one of my favorite films of the year. I absolutely loved A Quiet Place. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was one of the most innovative horror films in a long time. John Krasinski's directorial debut, the fact that this is the first time this dude is bringing it on the big screen, it was incredible. It was amazing. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. So I'm excited to see that on there. I'm excited to see A Star is Born on there as well. I actually really liked A Star is Born. I had a lot of fun with A Star is Born. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and it was so much fun. As Lethal Lightning gives me a $5 super chat, thank you, man. Odin, your rant game is strong. Much love. Well, thank you very much, man. I really, really do appreciate it. The other one I'm very excited to see on here is Green Book. Green Book was my third favorite now film of the year. It's a film that could have easily gone the route of identity politics, but instead does not go PC and tells a very beautiful story between two people from total opposite ends who somehow become not only friends, but also change each other's lives for the better. The last one on here I'm happy to see is Bohemian Rhapsody, because Bohemian Rhapsody to me was so much fun. It was a rock concert. It was a really great introspective into the life of Freddie Mercury and also the entire band of Queen, and it was fantastic. The reason why I want to talk about this list tonight, though, is because of what this means for the actual Academy itself. This is probably the most woke list, the most identity politics driven list that I have ever seen. And even though there are a couple films on here that I could say, hey, these are well-made movies, and it makes a little bit sense as to why they're getting recognized. Almost every single one of these films has something to it, has something that's going to, that really screams out at me as identity politics. Black Panther. Let's start with the top of the list. Black Panther. This is a movie that the only reason why it's getting as much love as it is, and I mean, come on, let's just be honest for a second. Let's just get all of the PC crap out of the way. The reason why this film, a Marvel film, a superhero film, is getting recognition from the PGA, which means it's all but guaranteed because it also got a Screen Actors nomination as well for Ensemble. It's got 2 Guild Award nominations, and you know that the director is going to get a DGA award as well, which means this film is going to be nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. And the only reason why, the primary reason why that's the case, is because it has an all-black cast. It's because of diversity. And some people might not want to hear that. Some people might not like that, but that is the truth. The truth of the matter is that Black Panther is getting as much love as it's getting because of diversity, for the sake of diversity's sake. Because if you're trying to tell me that Black Panther should be the first superhero film to get nominated for Best Picture, if you're trying to tell me that Black Panther is more worthy as a film, objectively speaking, than The Dark Knight, or even this year, Infinity War, you are out of your mind. You are absolutely out of your mind. So starting off there with Black Panther, identity politics has driven that film to receive this nomination. Nemesis08, thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate that. $100 super chat, dude. You're crazy, man. Thank you. Your loyalty and love for your viewers is even strong. Well, thank you, Nemesis. I really do appreciate that, man. And I will do the very best that I can to always be there for you guys, to whatever it is that you might need, whatever I can possibly give, from what little I can possibly give. You guys mean the world to me. So thank you so much for jumping on this stream and talking about this stuff with me. Moving on. Black Klansman coming up next. Black Klansman, a Spike Lee movie that is actually very well written. It's very smart, it's well shot, it's well acted, and yet at the very end what you realize is that all of that was to justify the real life footage from the past few years, attacking not only Donald Trump, but also justifying the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, I'm not going to deny that at the core of the Black Lives Matter movement, there are some good people who are trying to bring about positive change. But I'm sorry, at this point, that movement has been tainted by all of the violence and radicalism that has been a part of it. And yet Spike Lee took this movie as an opportunity, built up and wrote a brilliant story that didn't really delve into any of that stuff. I mean, it just told a historical story of a certain period of time, and it was funny. It was smart. But then you realize that he does that so that you, if you're a person especially of a left sensibility, of an NPC, SJW sensibility, will at the very end say, oh my God, you're so right. That's still, all of this stuff is still going on today. And oh my God, this is just, everything is Donald Trump's fault and Black Lives Matter. Oh my God, yes. And so you realize that this film is essentially propaganda for the Black Lives Matter movement. And yes, of course, this one gets a nomination for the producers, for the PGA, and you know it's going to get an Oscar nomination as well because, again, it fits the narrative. It fits the identity politics narrative. Bohemian Rhapsody. This is a film that I like. This is a film that I'm happy is on there. But at the end of the day, it is also a film that features a character, is focused on a character who is gay. Now, I think it does this very tastefully because it doesn't just focus on that. In fact, I think it handles it best because it shows you, hey, you are not defined by your sexuality. You are not defined by your sexual orientation. There is so much more to a person than just that, which is why I like it. And I like it being on this list. However, it still needs to be said. It still needs to be said because I guarantee you if this was a movie about a guy who was not gay, probably would not have been on the list. Next film on this list, Crazy Rich Asians. This is probably one of the worst movies I've seen this year. I gave this movie a D because not only is it just not funny, not only are all of the actors green and painful to watch on screen, but also, too, you start to realize very soon into the movie, oh, this movie is getting love and attention because of the narrative surrounding it. Because oh my God, the diversity on screen. This is the first time that a movie has starred all Asian actors and all Asian directors, writers, etc. And the narrative is what made this popular, not the movie itself. And we see that happen a lot in Hollywood. And I think that Crazy Rich Asians, more so than anything else on here, is the perfect representation of modern day Hollywood. The narrative around a movie, the narrative around, the media narrative around a given film, that is what defines a film, not the film itself. So even though Crazy Rich Asians is not a good movie, even though it's not funny, even though it has terrible writing and terrible acting, even though all of these things exist, it got a lot of love. And why is it the fact that it got a lot of love? Because what was the narrative? The narrative wasn't about, oh, this is just the same old tired rom-com just without the comedy. No, it was, oh my God, but we have to support it because of diversity. We have to support it because of diversity. The Favorite. The Favorite, I just saw it today. This movie, brilliantly shot, beautiful cinematography, solid acting. Story sucks because it's constantly jumping between being a period drama and some kind of campy comedy. But the problem is that they also take a lot of historical liberty because it all deals with Queen Anne. And apparently, if you read some history books, there's some speculation that Queen Anne had sexual relations with a few women in her general vicinity. And so obviously they decide to jump on this and run with it and let that be the central theme of the film. And so therefore it gets nominated, not because it's a good story, not because it's a good movie, but because of identity politics. Green Book. I actually like Green Book. I think Green Book is fantastic. I think that it's one of the best films of the year, my third favorite film of the year. At the end of the day, though, it's a story about a black man being driven through the South during the time of integration. So even though I like the film, even though I think the film is not identity politics oriented, I still will hold the Academy and all the voters to a very different standard, because they obviously look at this film and they don't see good cinematography, good writing, etc. They see just the visuals. They judge it based off of the identities and the diversity that's represented on screen. So again, the movie doesn't do that. The narrative around it does. In fact, this is a movie that a lot of people thought wouldn't get nominated because one of the stars, Viggo Mortensen, used the N-word in a conversation during a interview. Not using it in a derogatory way, but rather trying to say how this word has such a historical impact, and yet he got crucified for it and had to apologize for it, even though this is a man that was just trying to have an intellectual conversation about a time in history that he was being represented in. So again, the narrative around the film is important. A Quiet Place, no narrative. It's a great film. It's a great film. It's great to see it on here. Roma. Roma is a film that's obviously on here. Roma is obviously a film that is important to the Academy for the big reason that you have Alfonso Cuarón, who is an incredible director, but it's a film set in Mexico. And therefore, especially with modern day politics of today, especially with the Donald Trump situation, everything else going on with the wall, of course, it's going to get a lot more recognition. Even though it's a total bore, even though it just, to me, has no life to it whatsoever. And the cinematography might be good, but it was bored all the way through. Even with all that being the case, this is on here because, again, identity politics. A Star is Born, great film, really like it, but at one point features very strongly trans people. Again, narrative around a film. And lastly, Vice, which is probably the most blatant of all of this because it's about Dick Cheney. And so therefore it's a mocking of an attack of Dick Cheney and George W. Bush. So of course this film, even though this film has actually not gotten the best reviews from critics and audiences alike, still somehow got on here. The point I'm trying to make with all this and why I went through every single film is because, as you can see, almost every film on here has something that deals with identity politics, whether within the movie directly or within the narrative around the film. And this, to me, is going to easily translate over most of these films, if not all, because there's 10 nominations here. You could have between 5 and 10 at the Oscars. That means you're going to have a hodgepodge of these movies on there. And that means that identity politics is going to rule the day at the 2019 Oscars.